That was lovely, Michael. Thank you. Everybody feeling a little better? Yeah, lovely. I want to welcome Michael's daughter, Lucy, who's here with us as well. So welcome, Lucy. We're glad you're here. Right on. So Michael has two daughters, and this is his younger daughter and his older daughter. What's your Amelie? Yeah. Maybe we'll see her here sometime too. Want to let you know and also to thank you that our We Care room has been completely remodeled and is beautiful and open. So let's celebrate that. That's huge. Big deal. Many of you helped. We had a lot of volunteer folk put in hours of time to help us get things up to snuff there. The room that we retook was given up by our preschool that rents some space with us, and we were excited to do that because when we were sharing the space, as cool as that was and what we needed to do, we could never make it look just like an infant to 4-year-old nursery. It always kind of looked hybrid, and now it is custom made for our littlest little crosswalkers to be back there. You are welcome to wander back through the hall and see that space. I was talking to somebody yesterday. It's really great that we now have these 4 different zones, and they're all super cool. Thought about for the kids that we're trying to reach. So we have our 0 to 4 space. We have our elementary space, which is super cool and is packing out, by the way, which is great news. Our 412 lounge, which is our middle school space, is super cool. It's been that way for years now. And now we have a cool game room for all of them too, to go make a lot of noise with air hockey and skee ball and that kind of a thing. So very cool. In fact, probably none of you want to be here right now and rather go down the hall. I can't blame you. So anyway, thank you to those of you who helped. Raise your hand, by the way, if you had any part of putting things together or painting. Raise your hands. Thank you very much. All right, very good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we continue along with this series on thin places. We've been in this thing for 4 weeks. We got this week and next week to go. We first started talking about deconstructing, and this is a normal, natural part of all of life. And I just want to reiterate that sometimes when we hear that for faith, we think that, oh, this is just a faith thing. No. This is your whole life. Every part of your life, every part of nature is constantly in some mode of deconstruction and reconstruction, because you're not the same person that you are this day that you were a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You're different. You have had to deconstruct the way you thought about interacting with the world and how you understood yourself at every season of your life. That's true if you're a student. You have to think differently as a student. You're just not in student mode. How you think about being a student changes as you progress through different levels of education. In your key relationships, if it's your relationship with a significant other, you know that has to deconstruct. You go through your so-called honeymoon phase, which is, they can do no wrong. And then you have wake up to reality phase, where you recognize that they are human beings and learning to do this dance. And then as we age together and go through that together and go through the stressors of life together, it's a constant flow of deconstruction, reconstruction. That's just life. Your relationship with kids, if you have kids, same thing. You do not relate to your kids the same way you did when they were very small, or when they were elementary, or when they were teenagers, or when they're emerging adults, or when they're deep into adulthood. It's quite a ride, and it requires constantly shifting and moving. Your love for them stays the same, hopefully. Your relationship hopefully remains intact, but it must change in order to be vital, and that's the same thing with your faith. How we think about faith needs to change with time. So deconstruction is sort of recognizing those things that aren't really working or resonating with us so much anymore. By the way, it's a very Jesus thing to do. Remember, Jesus barbecued some very holy cows in his day. Read his Sermon on the Mount again, and you will see him saying right in the middle, you have heard it said, this is the traditional way of thinking about interpreting Scripture, and he says, and now I'm telling you a new way of thinking. That's reconstruction and deconstruction all happening at the same time. He was famous for it. He did it with thinking about what mattered most. So one of the most important laws of ancient Judaism was keeping the Sabbath. It's one of the top 10 rules, right? And yet Jesus was called out for breaking the Sabbath rule. And his comment back to those detractors was simply, Sabbath was made for humanity, not the other way around. So we hold these things loosely. And we think about these things and wonder, how is this becoming a new expression for us as we go forward? So reconstruction is simply rebuilding your spirituality with new tools because you want a fresh, vital faith and you want your faith to keep growing. So that's what we do. But before I jump in very much, I want to ask you a question and have you think about this for about 30 seconds. What would your experience be like if your faith was as strong as you could possibly imagine? So you dream about what ideal faith would look like. What would that feel like? What would it look like to you if your faith was stronger than ever? Give it a thought. So Jesus, when he taught, he loved to teach with parables. Parables are stories. They're made-up stories with a point. They show up in the Old Testament as well, but in the New Testament, he was famous for them. And some of you have come to me over my very long time here and have wondered, why has Jesus used parables? And when you ask that question, you're asking because you're annoyed that Jesus used parables. Why doesn't Jesus just lay it out straight for us? Give us the answer. What do you want us to see? And the reason why Jesus talked in parables at times is because he wanted you to think. He wanted to mess with you, us. He wanted you to not just sit with this and learn a fact and move on with your life. He wanted stories that stuck with you and you carry with you and you grow with them and ebb and flow with them throughout your life. He had two that were probably his most famous. One had to do with the Good Samaritan. You remember that one? That is a shocking story that he told. In the original context, people were gasping every step of the way. But the other one he told, which I think is probably equally famous and very well known, is called the parable of the prodigal. Now, most of us know it as the prodigal son. And I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. But before I do, I want you to remember that Jesus' favorite, well, in fact, I'll make this a little crosswalk quiz for those of you who've been around here a minute. What was Jesus' favorite title for God? Abba, very good. And what does Abba translate to? What is it? Daddy, good job. All right, yeah. Sometimes Father, but more specifically, Daddy. It's meant to be an intimate statement about God, which itself was shocking. At a time when God was up high in the Holy of Holies, not to be touched, Jesus spoke of God as this one who was so close, it was like a daddy who loved his daughter, right? Like we're seeing right now. Beautiful, approachable, accessible, complete. Remember that as you hear this crazy story about the prodigals. Then Jesus said, there was once a man who had two sons. This is the third of three stories, by the way, in succession, all about lost things and found things. There was once a man who had two sons. The younger son said to his father, Father, I want right now what's coming to me. In other words, you're going to die someday. I want the estate now. Cut a check. So the father divided the property between them. It wasn't long before the younger son packed his bags and left for a distant country. There, undisciplined and dissipated, he wasted everything he had. He had gone through all his money, and there was a bad famine all through that country. And, and he began there to feel it. He signed on with a citizen there who had assigned him to his fields to slop the pigs. He was so hungry he would have eaten the corn cobs in the pig slop, but no one would give him any. By the way, I just want to point out something here that is largely lost on us because we're a hot dog loving culture, aren't we? But we're talking about ancient Judaism here. And so you're talking about a Jewish rabbi, Jesus, making up a story about a Jewish guy from a household of wealth. And what is the bottom of the barrel for this guy? He's tending pigs, a forbidden food for Jewish people, an unclean animal. I mean, this is the epitome of as bad as it could possibly get for a young Jewish man. And by the way, all the people in the audience are kind of thinking, oh, this is poetic justice, man. This feels so good to see this kid eating pig slop, or wanting to. Well, that brought this younger son to his senses. And he said, all those farmhands working for my father sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am starving to death. I'm going to go back to my father. I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand. He got right up and went home to his father. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him, which meant, by the way, his father was looking for him. His heart pounding, Dad's heart, he ran out, embraced him, and kissed him. The son started his speech. Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son ever again. But the father wasn't listening. He was calling to the servants. Quick, bring a clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then get a prize-winning heifer and roast it. We're going to feast. We're going to have a wonderful time. My son is here, given up for dead and now alive, given up for lost and now found. And they began to have a wonderful time. All this time, his older son was out in the field. When the day's work was done, he came in. As he approached the house, he heard the music and dancing. Calling over to one of the houseboys, he asked what was going on. He told him, well, your brother came home. Your father has ordered a feast, barbecued beef, because he has him home safe and sound. The older brother stomped off in an angry sulk and refused to join in. His father came out from the party he was throwing and tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. The son said, look how many years I've stayed here serving you, never giving you one moment of grief. But have you ever thrown a party for me and my friends? Then this son of yours who has thrown away your money on whores shows up, and you go all out with a feast? Dad hears this, and he says, son, you don't understand. You're with me all the time, and everything that is mine is yours. But this is a wonderful time, and we had to celebrate. This brother of yours was dead, and he's alive. He's lost, and now he's found. So a couple things I want to share with you. Even today, we hear this story, and there's a lot to take away. There's a lot to think about. It's a pretty clear story in many ways, but there are some things that, are helped along, are made stronger when we understand the context. So first of all, you got to understand that when Jesus is telling this story to the people who are listening, he is getting audible feedback from the people all along the way, because even though it may be a very familiar story to you, it was a shocking tale that he was spinning with his crowd to make a point. When he first leads off with the younger son, who really doesn't deserve much of the inheritance at all. If anything, half of what his older brother is going to get, best day ever. When his younger son comes and says to his dad, Dad, I want to cash out. I know that I'm going to get half or my portion anyway, and why don't we just settle it right now? Everybody would have grumbled in the audience because they know what he was saying. The younger son is saying to his dad, Dad, I wish you were dead. I wish you were dead. Let's just pretend that's true now and go our separate ways. Prodigious in his cold-heartedness. Prodigious in his self-centeredness. Prodigious meaning lavish, excessive, exuberant. This is a ridiculous thing to ask. It's crazy. And then he actually takes the check. And what does he do? He very prodigiously spends. He's gone to Vegas, right? He's going to town. He's doing everything that Vegas has to offer. And he blows it all. He partied prodigiously. And then he wept prodigiously as he's in this pig slop space. And again, you can imagine if you're a Jewish crowd hearing this audacious thing that the younger son did, you're kind of happy that the kid is getting his, aren't you? Like, man, this is poetic justice. Serves you right, you jerk. That's how we think. That's how we think today, right? When people we don't like get theirs, well, you know what it's like then. So what does he do? He finally comes to his senses. Sometimes we got to be at the bottom of the barrel before we finally recognize, when we finally wake up and we know we need to change our lives and try again. It's interesting. Again, prodigious. This young man is prodigious even in his hope and his father's character, isn't he? I mean, he knows what he did. Isn't this crazy of him? It's audacious that he would think he could even go back to see Dad. Why would Dad ever want anything to do with him? He broke his heart. He offended him in as big a way as possible. He was prodigious even in his hope that his dad's character would remain true. A little quick aside, this parable was not meant to be a parenting 101 course, so don't listen to it that way. There are some issues with that. We can talk about that later, but just hear it for what it is. So the son makes his way back. He's got the speech prepared. And what do we see in the dad? We see more prodigiousness. He's prodigious in his looking at the horizon every day. Another morning has come, another day has gone, and I'm still not seeing my son. He was prodigious in his longing to see his son crest the horizon. When he finally sees him, he was prodigious in his behavior, which again would have caused a shock. First of all, his contemporaries, if the story were true, would try to console this father and say, hey, get over your son. I know it's hard, but boy, he just rejected you hard. You need to build into that anger. Go deep on that, because you should be deeply offended. And mainly, he was just wounded. And what does he do? He runs to see his son. At that moment, there'd be audible laughs in the crowd. Because if you're a rich old dude, you don't run anywhere. Partly because it's hard, but partly because you're rich. And when you're rich and you have wealth, people wait for you. You don't rush anywhere because you're a big deal. But that's not the case here. This guy, as best as he can, as fast as he can, he is running. His behavior, his energy expended is prodigious. And when he gets there, the son starts yammering on in his speech, but the father's prodigious again. Bring a robe. My son's clothes are in shambles. I will not have this. I love him. This is my son. Bring a robe. Bring some sandals for her feet. He's walking barefoot all these miles. He looks terrible. And by the way, bring the family ring. Now, I wear a family ring. This little guy here, this was my grandfather, who I was named after, Peter Smith. And so it's cool that I came across it, and nobody else in my family wanted it because their name's not Peter, so it worked out good. It is not an expensive ring. I looked at it. My grandfather was a pastor, right? So he couldn't afford anything real fancy. So it's a 10-karat gold ring, so it's gold, mostly. I don't know what this thing might cost today. $80, something like that, maybe $100. But to me, it's priceless. But the ring that was put on that younger son was a much bigger deal than that. Many scholars believe that ring that was put on his finger was a signet ring. A signet ring is power of attorney over the estate. The son had been cut a check for all of his portion of the money that would one day be his, assuming that he didn't get any more. But when dad puts the ring back on his finger, he's saying, you have full access to my entire estate again. That's prodigious. And then, of course, prodigious party. Let's kill one of the heifers. Something you would do for a wedding feast that was going to last a week. And he's doing it just to celebrate his son's return. So it wasn't just their little family having a party. All the servants were partying. Probably all the villagers were invited to this massive party affair. Prodigious expense. So we have a prodigious younger son. We have a prodigious dad. And then we get a prodigious older son also. Older son comes. He's been home the whole time, and he's mad in a prodigious way. His anger is causing him to fume and causing him not to even go into the party. He finds out about what's going on, wants nothing to do it. He backs away from the party. He's so prodigious in his hatred, right? What does the father do when he hears that his older son has finally made it in from work and he's hanging out outside? He's not coming to the party. Prodigious dad does a prodigious thing again. He, the owner of the estate, the one who's paying for the whole party, the one who could have attitude toward his son and say, well, if he doesn't want to come in, that's his problem. He's going to miss out on the best barbecue he's ever had. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't feed into his anger. He's prodigious again in his grace. And he goes out to his obstinate son, hears him speak, hears him say terrible things about him, right? So you're seeing the heart of this prodigiously angry older son. And dad doesn't hear it. He just simply speaks truth. Son, you've been here the whole time. What's mine is yours. You've got the same ring on your finger. What do you want to do? Now, this story is pretty powerful. Lots to think about, and there's no way I can cover it, and I don't intend to today. My question is, how do you relate to this prodigal's parable? My question, though, beyond that is, are you living at home where love and grace abound? Because today, the way I'm thinking about this story, it's a story about coming and staying home. That younger son had to go halfway around the world to figure out where home was. And I don't just mean his address. Where is home? Where is life? Where is love? And tragically, the older son had the same problem, and some of us can relate to it. He was home at the physical address the whole time, but was never home. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a way to be home in the space of grace and love and life and joy and peace and all the other fruits of the Spirit. Wherever you are, whatever you are going through, you can be home. Are you living at home where love and grace abound? Because that's the invitation of faith. And I don't know what your idea of, best faith ever, if you were at your strongest, what would that experience be like? But I bet there's some resonance with that. With feeling whole, feeling loved, feeling graced, feeling welcomed. Even if your idea of your strongest faith was having all the answers, you get the beliefs exactly the way they're supposed to be so that you can pass the test at the end of your life. If you go behind that a couple whys, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? What are you really getting at? Isn't it because you want the right answers because you don't want to offend God if that's your view? You want to be welcomed by the God who has given you life and breath. That's the deepest why. This resonance. I follow a guy named Trip Fuller. He is a prodigious podcaster and provocative in a lot of ways. And he posted a thing just this week that just blew my mind and deeply resonated with me. I put it on our Crosswalk channels. I put it on my personal channels. So check out the IG, check out the Facebook feed, and read it. See what you think about this. It'll take you 30 minutes to listen to it or read it. But he quotes and gives a recap of a guy named Hartmut Rosa, who I'd never heard of, who is a German sociologist. And to recap it, Trip Fuller recaps this guy. Hartmut Rosa says, resonance is the criterion for a good life. Resonance is not a feeling or an emotion. It's a mode of relationship, a way of being in the world characterized by mutual responsiveness. Think of two tuning forks, that's it. Strike one and the other begins to vibrate in response. Think of a conversation where you feel truly heard and something shifts in you. Think of a moment in nature or music or prayer where you were touched by something beyond yourself and found yourself responding. This is resonance. I have a quick question for you. How do you respond or resonate with this idea of resonance? And how is it similar or dissimilar to your vision of living in a strong faith? Because I bet they're related. I bet they're related. That your deepest heart's desire is to live a resonant life with God, with yourself, with everybody else, with creation itself. This, by the way, is what things looked like in the earliest Jewish stories of creation, where everything was good, everybody was getting along in harmony with each other. This is what is the epitome of shalom, that great Jewish word which is so much bigger than simply peace. It is resonance at the deepest level. Dana Hicks, in his book, The Quest for Thin Places, in this Reconstruction area, he spends chapters talking about and heralding meditation as a way to foster this, to bring this about in our life, to quiet the mind, to quiet ourselves so that we can drill down to what is really, really, really there beyond all of our ego-ness that we have. All the trappings of our busyness, that's one thing, but then all the voices in our heads that are telling us who we are. All the influences from our family of origin, our culture, our ethnicity, our politics, our country, our place in time, all of that telling us this is who you are. Yet beneath all of that, there's a you there. A you there that's you-ier than all of that other stuff. It is who you are just in the face and the reflection of God. The fancy theological word is imago Dei, made in the image of God. This is how the story begins in the Jewish tradition. We are made in the image of God. Meditation helps us drill down to that space. And it also feels good. A guy named Robert Wright said, when the brain's default mode network subsides, that's the busy mind that goes on and on, when the mind stops wondering, it can be a good feeling. There can be a sense of liberation from your chattering mind, a sense of peace, even deep peace. So some people really dig meditation. It's easy, just the breathing exercises. Comes really easily. For some people, it's more difficult. But for those that it's really easy, you might be able to resonate with Rumi here, who in his poetic way says, do you know what you are? You are a manuscript of a divine letter. You are a mirror reflecting a noble face. The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything you want, you are already that. That's some powerful, profound stuff that I think he probably wrote out of his experience centuries ago. How many of you, though, if you're honest, it's okay, safe place, no judgment. How many of you struggle with just breathing meditation? Your mind wanders like crazy. You go crazy. Yeah, it's insanity. Yeah, so sometimes we need some body stuff to help. I did this more in the first service, but there's this Quaker prayer, uses your body, which is helpful. So you're sitting down, your palms are down. This is sort of a body image of letting go. So you're focusing on just letting go of all the things on your mind and all the ego stuff and your aches and pains and all that. And then eventually, when you've kind of exhausted all that, you just turn your palms up, and that's a place of receptivity, and you're inviting love and the Spirit of God and however that is for you today, what you need that to mean for you that day. But it's all good and lovely. And sometimes we need to actually get our minds, like a mantra type thing, a word or a phrase. Michael had us do shalom today, which is entirely appropriate. And sometimes just saying that brings us a calm. Sometimes with that Quaker prayer, that's what this is, this meditation, is you can even say, I'm letting go. So your mind has something to focus on. I'm letting go. And now I'm receiving love, I'm receiving whatever. So those things are helpful. But how many of you also find yourself renewed and closer to whatever we understand God to be or spirituality when you're in nature, in the beauty of nature? Yeah, right. I could have Carrie Nuccio recite this from memory, but I will not put her on the spot. Because if you are at Yellowstone, if you're right about right there, if you can just see it, there's a little plaque. You can't see it in this, but you can keep trying to see it. But if you go to where John Muir built a log cabin, it's a little bit off the beaten track, you will find a little bronze plaque where he is quoted saying this: "Climb the mountains and get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while the cares will drop off like autumn leaves." That happens. Why? It's because when we are in the redwoods, when we're on the mountaintops, when we're at the ocean, when we're in the stream, in the lake, walking through the vineyards, when we are surrounded by beauty everywhere, we forget ourselves. We come home. We come home. And as long as we're there, we're more likely to stay home. It's weird, isn't it? But I bet it's true for you. Thich Nhat Hanh agreed with this. He said, people usually consider walking on water or in thin air a miracle, but I think the real miracle is not to walk either on water or in thin air, but to walk on earth Every day we are engaged in a miracle which we don't even recognize. A blue sky, white clouds, green leaves, the black curious eyes of a child, our own two eyes. All is a miracle. And it is. It is. Do we hear creation itself singing all the time? You remember the story when Jesus was heading in on Palm Sunday and he's riding on this donkey and he's got crowds, all of his fans are there to welcome him and they're cheering and stuff. And some of the religious leaders were put off by this and they called him out on it. They said, this is inappropriate. They shouldn't be worshiping you this way, which is technically accurate. Worship means worthship, and they're denoting worth to Jesus. Do you remember Jesus' response to his detractors here? He says, if they weren't crying out, the rocks would cry out. Maybe he's not trying to be profound, or maybe he's being deeply profound. Could it be that the rest of creation is already in sync with everything that God is trying to do? The creation itself is constantly singing out in its various forms, and we're just a little bit late to the chorus. These invitations of reconstruction are ways to get ourselves back in that chorus, to be singing the song that our hearts already want to, and in many ways are doing. Our brains just haven't caught up yet. Because your body right now is glorifying God. Even with all its aches and pains. You are the creation of God. And it's working. You realize how amazing you are? Your heart's still beating. Your brain is still working. Most of you are still awake right now. That's amazing. Why not get on board with what your very body already knows to do? So some final questions. Then I want to have a conversation with Michael because he's been through this and has had a lot to say about this. So my questions, we'll just keep this up here, is what practices help you come and stay home? Thinking about that prodigal. What helps you get home and stay home? And what keeps you from realizing you're already home? And what new old practices do you want to try out? So Michael, if you want to come up here, let's have a conversation. See how you're resonating with this or not, and feel free to disagree with me as much as you like. And then this last quote here, I like this because it forces some roominess, and it challenges our arrogance of needing to believe it in just the right way. In our church, we have people of various theological persuasions. We're all over the map, and that's a great thing. And we also have people who don't believe in what we would call God at all. Functionally, they are atheists, maybe mystics, whatever. We're at every end of the spectrum, and so even when we talk about God, it becomes uncomfortable. And what I want to suggest is that if we do some of these practices, I wonder how true Brian Marescu's statement is. Once you've plunged into the ocean, does it really matter whether or not you believe in the water? So let that bug you. All right, so Guggert, Michael, let me give you this mic if you want. This is the one we can turn off in case you say something offensive. Just kidding. First of all, just, you had to sit with this as I shared this with the congregation. So react to it, respond to it. What's your experience with all this? Just riff for a minute.
Yeah. For me, the most important thing about any practice, and that's meditation, that's religious practice, spiritual practice in any way, I think it's the directionality and the orientation more than the specifics of the mechanics. So what I mean by that is that Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And I think if Christianity understood that and took it seriously, everything about it would change. That's not the kingdom of heaven that I was raised to believe in church. I heard that scripture, it was taught occasionally, but I think it was taught more as like metaphor or something. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe is one of the more literal things that he actually said. That everything, it's like that Rumi quote that you said, everything that you're looking for is already here. It's already within you. And I was taught that God was up there, out there. Everything that we were doing was trying to get that, either to get there after we died, or at least to get some of that here now. It was always like a reaching and a grasping. And when I started meditating, I had some of that energy as well. It was like this up and out. Like, where am I going to get the peace? Even when I'm looking inward to my own breath or whatever, there was an energy about it. The orientation of it was like, can I get what I need out of this? And when my mind would, like the Buddhists call it monkey mind, that like, oh, I thought I was able to pay attention to 2 breaths that time, and then I was off thinking about pizza or whatever. It was like, oh, I failed then, and it was shame. Oh, why can't I do this? And because there was a goal that was an upward and outward orientation still. And I think what you mentioned with the turning the hands over, that orientation, I think, is the orientation of the kingdom of heaven is within. It's that it's a feeling, a directionality. It's more like a yes than a no. You know, like in computers, how everything's built on binary code, ones or zeros. Like everything you see digitally is either 1 or a 0, mixed up in a certain way. I think that's kind of how the universe is. There's yes and no. There's and there's it's more direct and visceral than you can say words to. You start getting a feel for it. And I think you can do any practice, any religion, anything can be either one of those. Going out to try to achieve, to dominate, to control, to look for approval, to try to get safety from somewhere out there. Or there's a dissolving into resting, yes, surrender, thy will be done. And it's within your experience. It's within your body. It's within whatever you think of as you. That whatever you think of as you is always looking outward to try to find the approval, to find its ground, and its opposite. Jesus said, unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, or if you try to hold on to your life, you're going to lose it. But if you let go of it, it's all opposite. It's all upside down. So I think it's that orientation that any practice then can become prayer, can become meditation, can become home. But these practices, however useful they are for you in reversing that polarity from the to the receiving to the yes, that to me is how valuable the practice is.
Yeah. So on the practical level, how would you encourage people to navigate their way through that? Because that's not just a simple, well, thanks, now we're going to just do it. What does that process look like, and how would you encourage?
I'm actually like on a 3rd draft of a book now about this very thing. But it's, I guess, just as simplification as possible, like to simplify as much as possible. It's loving whatever comes up. So if you do breath meditation, and what comes up is thought about pizza, this is a moment now that you have, now there's the choice again for the polarity. It's like, oh man, I'm thinking about pizza. Why am I doing this anyway? Let's just go do something else. There's that no reaction, or there's like, oh hi, pizza. Maybe I'm hungry. Or like, you don't even have to follow the thought, just notice, oh, thought. The more that space that opens up for any experience, any emotion, where we stop judging the good emotions as like, happy and peaceful, that's good. And if I'm being nice, it's good. And then when I'm feeling ornery or frustrated, or that's bad, so I got to push those things away. And I got to push away the suffering, and I got to embrace the bliss. That's what everybody's doing. That's what the ego is. Like everybody wants to be free. Everybody wants to be happy. The upside down, like accepting what is counterintuitive. Like, oh, hatred. Oh, hi, hatred.
Yeah, right?
That doesn't feel right. It feels like, oh no, I'm going to be bad if I welcome the hatred, if I welcome all this anger and depression that I'm feeling when I'm looking at the news, I got to push that away. That's the opposite energy. It feels intuitively like you're going to try to move towards peace by pushing away not peace. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
By embracing not peace, you find peace.
All right, let's unpack that just a second, because we live in a very divided culture right now where forces at play are stoking that hatred, and behind that hatred is fear, and related to that fear is sorrow, things lost, things fearing of being lost. And I'm thinking about some folks that maybe struggle, with, like say, depression or something, and the idea of being in this depressed state and leaning into that feels terrifying, because it's like, I'm already in a dark space, now I'm supposed to go right into the dark hole. So can you walk us through, from your experience, what has it been like for you to lean into especially some of these negative, hot, emotions, and where does it go? Talk about that.
Yeah, beautiful question. The hot emotions especially, I feel like we need more cultural space for that, because we are trained from little kids. And I as a dad, Lou's in here, she's talking on the table. I'm like, let's go back here. If you're going to talk, you got to be away from everybody. I don't like that, and I know it's we're trying to not distract each other. We're trying to also maintain boundaries and some sense of civilizedness as society. So I don't think it's bad that we're civilized in these ways, but it does cut off aspects of our experience. We're not allowed societally to just start screaming in the middle of the mall because we're feeling mad. You're like, what's wrong? Take that person out of here. Even somebody crying. Like, there's all these rules. Like in here, it's probably the social rules that we all know about. Like, it'd be okay for you to cry a little bit, but if you started wailing, you'd or someone else around you would probably be like, can we get them some help? Like, get them a Kleenex, or shh, it's okay. So, that's you're too big for this social context. And like, so we need more social contexts where we can let the big stuff out. I think for me, like, dance has been a big thing, which is like, I grew up incredibly disembodied, hating dance. But when I found this dance practice called 5 Rhythms, actually, and you go, and it's kind of like a yoga class meets dance class, but you can really move, there's no, like, you're not trying to look good, there's no right moves, you're actually just moving emotions and energy and stuff. And you can be ugly with the movements, and you can get it all out. Yeah. And I found that to be very helpful. Different things like that, like going to the ocean or into the forest where you're by yourself and just screaming grief or anger, like finding ways of actually letting your body move and emotion and energy move is a way that you can say yes to your experience and your emotion without always just resorting to repression, cutting it off, shame, and trying to be okay on the surface. And, but it's that, if you can feel that, the difference in the energy of like, okay, maybe I can't scream right now, but I notice there's some stuff that probably needs to come out. Where can that come out? Through my body, into the ground, in a dance, in a song, in a... I think that's part of like saying yes to our bodies and yes to experience. And then over time, because a lot of times those big ones are not actually totally current. They're not like...
True.
It's not just this one thing that's making it happen. It's the 30 years of not being able to say anything about that thing. That's bursting. And so finding regular outlets for that. What I found now is if frustration, anger comes up, it's not as big and it's not nearly as long lasting. It's more like a flash than this like mass that needs to be extricated from my body.
Yeah, it doesn't exert the same kind of power over you that it may once have because it was ignored or dismissed. Yeah, very good. And okay, other than and I want to be conscious of time. We're about out of here. Actually, we're over time, so thank you for your patience. But so other than making those negative experiences more short-lived, flash rather than an extended thing, what else is on the other side of leaning into these emotion spaces that we've been taught to keep at bay?
Yeah, I think there's a sort of actual kind of alchemy that happens with all these emotions. I think they're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like anger can turn into embodied courage, standing as love in the world.
Mm-hmm.
If you let it move and be what it wants, it's moving towards something.
Yeah.
Fear can be excitement.
Yeah.
Grief can be deep love and connection. Like when we let what we think of as the negative side of things grow up and take full expression, they're not negative things. They're like, they actually are seeds of aliveness that can really bear good fruit when they're allowed, when they're not repressed, they're not cut off, they're not ignored, but they're allowed to grow into their what they fully could be.
Yeah, that's so rich. And I'm thinking of two negative emotions, here we go, that Jesus did. One was when he flipped the tables, the money-changing tables, he was angry. And sometimes we're told as Christians, you can't be angry. Well, Jesus was extremely angry at the injustice he saw taking place from those with wealth, particularly against those who had very little. And so his anger drove him to, a nonviolent response, so to speak, flipped some tables and made some people not very happy that day. So it fueled him to do that. And then the other time I think about is deep sorrow. So you mentioned crying. The shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept. And it's in the context of him losing a dear friend named Lazarus. But what is missed in the translation, except Eugene Peterson gets it right in the Message version, is that it's not just shedding a little bit of a tear, but it was this gut-wrenching weeping, like out loud. It wasn't like somebody said, did you notice that little tear in Jesus' eyes? No, everybody knew that Jesus was weeping because it was just so all body in. And it was more than just about losing his friend, which he was going to, as the story goes, he was going to resurrect anyway, so that doesn't make any sense. It was more this reality of the separation people had from the presence of God, the presence of life in that moment that was actually behind his angry crying, that the tone of the crying is an angry crying. He's frustrated. This is the reality we live in where we feel so separated from stuff. So that's good. All right.